Hello, my name is Hitendra Patel. I'm the Managing Director of the Global Innovation Management Institute. I'd like to welcome you and join our vision and our mission of the Institute. Our vision is to democratize innovation everywhere, in organizations like universities or corporations, in high schools, in governments. And the idea is to unleash that creativity across the globe. Our mission is much more simpler: to train 1 million people worldwide, certify them, and unleash their creativity and their problem-solving skills to target any problem on this planet. The Global Innovation Management Institute has got certifications for individuals, for corporations, as well as for the government. And the whole idea over here is through certifications, people have the right to practice innovation. Through certifications, we create a roadmap for how to get better and improve as we get level 1 certificate to level 2 to level 3. We are today working with the Dubai government, the Qatar government, across Colombia, in Brazil, in the United States, helping these institutes and these countries become better in terms of their innovation journeys. We're working with corporations, giving them roadmaps, how they can go from level 1 to level 2. And we're giving certificates to individuals as they go from level 1, 2, 3, and 4 in terms of how they can actually innovate themselves, how they can innovate in teams, and how they can innovate in a company.
We've worked with several innovation consultancies, and we found the GIMI methodology to be able to help us democratize innovation very quickly across large groups of people.
Curriculum isn't enough anymore. We need to really be finding ways to expand the school into the community and bring the communities into the school. And design thinking and the GIMI impact model is what's going to help do that. I think that we really need to start looking for authentic, experiential learning opportunities for our students. And this is a really great framework that teachers can use that makes it easy to do.
The value that we see being part of the GIMI program is that we can offer capability building for students, for professionals, for corporations, and that's really exciting to be able to create a language that can help everybody connect with what strategic innovation is.
Today we've got 25 countries who are partners of the Global Innovation Management Institute. We'd like to see all 195 plus countries becoming part of this institute. So we are looking for training partners across the globe. We're looking for university partners in every one of those countries so they can be part of our network. And we would like to see companies and corporations around the world all embracing the certification programs of GIMI. And as a result, we can target any problem and we can solve any problem. Join us on our mission through certificates to give people the right to practice and a roadmap of how to improve.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you very much for being here. So I'm very excited for the amazing speaker that we have today. So as you know, every month we are hosting, as part of the GIMI Think Tank, these sessions around energy transition. So this is part of the Centers of Excellence that the Global Innovation Management Institute are pretty much driving forward on different themes. So we're going to be focusing now the conversation on some of the strategies that the world is pretty much doing in this energy transition effort that pretty much all the industries and all the countries are doing right now. So let me introduce right now our speaker for today. So thank you very much, Josefa Ibaceta, for being here with us. So she is the General Manager of ECIT, Science and Engineering. She's going to be talking about hydrogen projects development from Chile to Latin America. So she is a founding partner and the general manager of this engineering and science company. She has a PhD in electricity from TU Berlin and a master's degree in mechanics from the University of Chile. She has also developed her career as a research engineering, international collaboration driver, and specialized in the technical scientific development of hydrogen projects and its derivatives, from teaching hydrogen courses to public and private sectors around the globe to collaborating in the design and development of production and application projects. So with that, thank you very much again for being here, Dr. Josefa, and please, the floor is yours.
So thank you so much. I will then start sharing my screen. So welcome to everyone and good day. My name is Josefa Ibaceta. Thank you so much for the introduction. First, I would like to quickly talk a little bit about myself, my career, and my company, so you can understand where is this talk coming from. So I am here representing the company ECIT. ECIT comes from Energy, Science, Engineering, and Technology, and it's a Chilean company that is dedicated to engineering, science, and also training for hydrogen projects and its derivatives, from production to applications. Well, as I was already presented, my name is Josefa. I am the CIO of this company. And just to tell you a little bit how this came to be. So my academic background is mechanical engineering. I also have a master in the same and a PhD from electrical engineering from the Technical University of Berlin. I have been working in the design for the conception of instabilities for optoelectronic materials for solar cells in Chile, United States, and also Germany, just looking how to move and create some things for specific applications. In particular, for photovoltaics, in Chile, we have a high resource, solar resource, that is really intensive. So we need to create technologies that adapt to that condition. And even though I'm really passionate about science most of the time just reach the barrier of scientific publications, and it doesn't go further. So we can make a small pilots, a small lab proofs, but we cannot make it happen. So the first thing that I realized is that we need international collaboration. And for that, I have been driving all these international initiatives to collaborate and create some scientific projects together. But then I noticed that we need to make it bigger. And for that, you need engineering. And for engineering, I found another founding partner, that is Sebastián Álvarez, who is also a mechanical engineer from the same university. He designed and developed 5 pilot plants, from the very pilots to the academic laboratories, and he installed them in Chile. So he has this practical experience, and he was noticing this lack of scientific approach during the design. So we put this together, and with also his insight of normatives and regulations in the local landscape, we created this company to just push over the market. So our services are also in the same line with what is the market looking for from our point of view. There is engineering. So we are also doing feasibility and pre-feasibility studies, technical counterpart, because most of the people who are working in this new hydrogen market are also from other markets. Could be renewable energy market, or could be the oil and gas. And they just need just the little technical part to move towards hydrogen. So we help in that. We're also doing project management to make everything run smoothly. As you can see here, we also believe that knowledge must be shared. So we do trainings like this talk, and also formal trainings, specific trainings, and we participate in many diplomas, master programs from many universities, just to keep people moving and pushing towards this formation for human capacities. And finally, science, because I am really happy about science. And we believe that many of the studies could be pushed toward, and you maybe have heard it in the most popular way to say it, like research and development, the R&D. So this is happening, and this is new. And for that, you always need science. So these are our 3 topics. And then you can see that how this is actually creating itself. So let's go to the talk. These are the hydrogen projects development from Chile to Latin America. I would divided this talk in three parts. First, the introduction. Mostly, what is the context? How is this greenhouse gases emissions going to be reduced? What is hydrogen? How can it be produced? And why are we talking about Latin America? Then we are going to focus in Chile. So why in Chile? What is this? What is happening with the regulations? What is happening with the project's development? And what is the perspective for the market? And finally, some conclusions. So what is the next step that we should take to move forward, to accelerate it, and make it also viable in terms of economical, social, environmental point of view. So let's start. We all know about the climate urgency. We have seen in our summers that are hotter, winter that are colder. We have seen wildfires, floods, and droughts. And this is something happening because for all the industrial advancement, we also pushed together the emissions of CO2. And that was something that the Earth took 5 million years just to capture and put together. And we're just burning in 500. So we took make 1,000,000 times faster than the Earth could work with. And we have also 1,000,000 times faster the acceleration towards the global warming. And what does that mean? That we have heard many times that the Earth is increasing this mean temperature. And from 1970s, all years, it has increased a little bit more. This increase of the temperature of the Earth is related to the greenhouse gases emissions. And to create and to balance that, we need to go to different scenarios. What we are looking for and what we are hoping as the world is just to contain everything at 1.5 degrees Celsius. There is another line that is taking about 2 degrees Celsius. And you can see from this graphic that this means a really considerable decrease in the global emissions. In numbers, you can see that there is 37,000 millions tons of carbon dioxide per year at just last year that we have to reduce. So let's put the scientific point of view. Because if I tell you about numbers, you would say, okay, but what is 1.5 degrees? I cannot even feel it. Yes, maybe as a person, you cannot feel it. As environment is a little bit different, but as the whole planet is actually quite important. You can consider that today we have a mean value of temperature about 15 degrees Celsius. The Ice Age was at 9 degrees Celsius, and the dinosaurs lived with 19. So we're actually close to the dinosaurs era of temperature, and we are moving towards that. That's not the way that our ecosystem can live, and it involves important changes. So let's put the scientific look, this magnifying glass about what is actually happening there. So if we see at the front of the Earth, we have this carbon dioxide that is vibrating, and this vibration encapsulates the energy and doesn't let it go. So normally we should have something because we cannot live in a planet without temperature, but we are actually putting together more than we should have. And that's why everything that is creating there is actually encapsulating all this warmth that comes to the sun, and it cannot let it go. So we are increasing that. If you see it in that point of view, then the logical part is just to, okay, so let's remove the CO2 that is in the atmosphere. And the question would be, how? And how many? So to how many from this 37,000 million, we should go to 0. And that means a lot of different approaches. One of them that is really normalized today is the renewable energies. We have heard about that, and we have also implemented in all of our countries, many of them. There is also direct removals of the CO2. There are many technologies for carbon capture. There is the direct electrifications, there is also bioenergy, and from one of these points, there is hydrogen. And if you see in the map, it takes a huge portion of what is actually going to be. So what is hydrogen and how can it be produced? If you say it in the periodic table, hydrogen is the very first element.
Du kannst das in der Kontakte-App tun.
Oh, bitte. So it's the most abundant chemical element since the simplest and estimated to contribute to 75% of the mass of the universe. So it's almost everywhere. It's part of the universe in the whole, that is mostly hydrogen and helium. And here, almost all the carbon, so all the carbon contained has some part of hydrogen, so it's almost everywhere. Hydrogen, just as the molecule, is a gas that is flammable, colorless, odorless, and tasteless. The interesting part is the energy density. That is 33 kilowatt-hour per kilogram of hydrogen. What does it mean? It means that in 1 kilogram of hydrogen, we have almost 3 times the energy of the conventional fuels like gasoline or diesel. So it's quite interesting to take into account for energy demand. And how it is produced and why is it so amazing? We don't have it everywhere. So normally hydrogen today, it comes from natural gas in a process where a lot of carbon dioxide is emitted. And as we saw before, carbon dioxide is really bad for the environment. Therefore, we need to make another thing. Then another form is just to capture it, capture the CO2, and then we have hydrogen. However, we have leakage. We have leakage of natural gas during the process, and we have efficiency of these processes. So not all the natural gas is going to convert into hydrogen, and not all the CO2 is going to be captured. So how can we make it in another way? And it's a really popular concept of green hydrogen that is also named as clean hydrogen, renewable hydrogen, sustainable hydrogen, or whatever label the certification that is involved calls it. Here we need a source to create this hydrogen that is actually clean. And one of the most popular ways today that is evaluated in many of the projects is from the electrolysis of water that is actually fed with green electricity. And this electricity could come from a renewable energy. So we need water, green electricity, and then you have hydrogen and only that oxygen. And that could be the part of the process. So here you can see in general what is the really basic part of this. And we are going to go a little bit further into the market. So, okay, but who is doing this green hydrogen? Who is producing it? And we can see in this map that is actually from the International Energy Agency that there is a different price of this hydrogen that could be produced around the world. And it depends mostly on the price of this electricity. From 70 to 80% of the cost of hydrogen is really related to the electricity. And that, if it comes from renewable energies, it means that is related to the renewable resource. And which continents or which places do have this incredible resource? One of that is Latin America. And that is why all the strategies and all the studies marked this really low price of hydrogen, that around $1.5 to $3 per kilogram. That could be competitive to the natural gas. In terms of projects, in the world, there has been gathered almost 2,000 projects of hydrogen. That means around more than 400 gigawatts of electrolysis, where 44% of these projects are already reached have already reached the final investment decision. This means that there is already 16 gigawatts of energy that is already being built or in operation. And in Latin America, only in Latin America, we have more than 100 projects, where 26% of them have reached the final investment decision. And why? So one of the reasons is because most of this market are focused in Europe and also in the United States, where they have another politics, regulation, and incentives. And for us in Latin America, this is quite new. So we are producing it, but how can we use it? We can use it pure, just the hydrogen as an energy carrier, or we can use it mixed. And if you see in the graphic at the left, Trinidad and Tobago is going to be one of the biggest consumers of hydrogen, either pure or mixed. And if you see in the graphic of the right, we could see that for the 2030 accelerated projections, most of these applications could be to the production of ammonia or the refining. However, there is also methanol production, and an important part in the iron and steel, where you can use it for direct reduction. So this is the hydrogen demand to 2030. So that's in general for Latin America. So why Chile? Because this is where I am developing projects and I am really interested in it. So in Chile, we have the timeline of all the regulations, and you can see that it started really early when all this interesting wave has come through. In 2018, the Industrial Association of Developers and other actors in the value chain had been gathered in the H2 Chile. And also the first pilot plant of hydrogen has also entered operation. Then there is another important landmarks. For example, in 2020, we have the first national strategy of green hydrogen that was the first in Latin America. From there, we started developing really local hubs in other partnerships like in Biobío, Antofagasta, and Magallanes and Antarctica. And finally, this year, we have the regulation from the Supreme Decree 13 of the hydrogen installation safety. So we can create and operate plants under the regulation that is already established. However, there are many things to do. And from last year to this one, I started the action plan that has more than 80 specific measures to just create and push forward the regulation of the market. And they have identified 17 initiatives for these regulations that have to be focused in different parts. For example, in the normatives of quality, of blending, of the hydrogen refueling stations, and everything that is really going to be critical in the market development are already put in the timeline. So we know exactly when this is going to happen, and this helps the country to focus the efforts in one specific part. So I told you that in Latin America, they collected 126 projects. And in just Chile, so how updated is really that? Just in Chile, in last year, they counted 64 projects. And you can see they are divided in different parts of the country that are related to all these local hubs that are already being gathered and regulated. So one of the most important ones are Antofagasta, who has a really important solar resource, and in the south, in Magallanes, that is in the right of the graphic, that it has a really important wind resource. In the middle, there is a lot of projects from the central part of Chile that are focused a lot in applications and other development of refined fuels. However, we in ECIT, we made another database and we collected more information, and we found 101 projects of hydrogen that are being announced in Chile to this date. They are also concentrated in the same part, as you can see in the graphic on the right, and that is related to 11, almost 12 gigawatts in Antofagasta. So in the north of Chile, you can see almost 15 gigawatts. And in the south, just in Magallanes, had been announced almost 30 gigawatts of energy. These projects are supposed to enter the operation and all the important investment from 10 to 15 years. And the investment announced is around $66,000 million, which are related to 1,600 kilotons of hydrogen per year. What are these projects for? If something is really transversal to Latin America, is that our energy demand per country is not really high, especially compared to the big consumers as Europe or United States. So we are not going to use all the hydrogen that we are producing. Most of these projects, especially more than 40% of these projects, are for exportation. Then we have 1/3 of them that are about industrial applications for local demands. And finally, we have the rest that is covering for pilots or academic laboratories, just to get to know the technologies and try to decrease the risk of the investment for the development of projects. But that is what is announced. What is actually going on? From our Chilean Electricity and Fuels Authority, we have already 13 approved projects that are already approved to build and operate. And we have 8 projects that entered environmental evaluation systems, which they are, and here are the numbers from before. The investment that they are announced are $15,000 million and 170 kilotons of hydrogen per year. So what we have already going on in Chile is almost 3 gigawatts of electrolysis that is going to be installed in the next years. And where exactly? Well, I put the map from before, but just focus on the projects that are already in this evaluation. You can see them in the green circles, where the approved ones are already in the shaded green ones. Also, the highest powered of electrolysis is a project in Magallanes that has 1.4 gigawatts. So it's almost half of all the announced power in just one big project. And it's one of the highest investment projects that are currently going on in Chile. So it's really challenging, but also really interesting to see this pushing forward. It could be a really new landmark for everything that is investing in this country. So what is going to be projected? Because I told you about the announced projects, what already is going on, but these are the projections, because we have been having a lot of increase. A lot of increase in the project announcements since 2018. It is projected that in 2025, we will have 44 kilotons of hydrogen, which is going to be 10 times more in 2030, until finally we have 4,000 kilotons in 2050. This is considering that 60% of the investment of the projects in the environmental system is going to be unapproved and carry out between 2027 and 2033. However, not everything is positive. We have barriers, as it's I think it's really normal for any market that is innovating in a new technology to have the same barriers that are the same transversal barriers in almost every country are the same. The huge difference could be what is more important than the other and what is more difficult to go through in the different countries. But the barriers that we have identified are the same that we could see when it started the fuel, like the fossil fuel production, when we have this renewable energy transition, and now we have this hydrogen transition. So it's the same barriers. The difference, the most important difference, is the timeline that we are going to push forward this. The fossil fuels took 120 years to put everything into account, for the technological maturity, to the regulations, to the global market trading. Renewable energies have been around like 30 years, moving around the world, and we have finally some really stable prices for the technologies, especially in PV. And the point is, with hydrogen, we want to make this in 12. So we are just trying to rush everything. And for that, we need to learn lessons from all of the other markets. So just take a look at these barriers. The economic barriers are the high prices of technologies. We know that this technology is new, is not really created in really specific companies. The automatization of all this production is also in development, and the scale economy is not really developed. So we have a lot of economic factors that are actually going through this lack of investment decision. There's a lot of risk for the development of the market, and that also is uncertainty, and it goes through the bankability. So the credits of the hydrogen projects are higher than other technologies because of this risk. And that's also challenging that hinders, a challenge that hinders all the development. There is also a regulatory barrier. For one part, we need new regulations, and we are going through them, but many of them are still on the line. And also, most of the times could be really long because, and this goes a little bit together with the human capital. And we talk about the professionalization of the industry. The ones that are in the public entities that are looking for regulations, they weren't people that were trained or formed specifically in hydrogen. They were looking towards regulation of energy, of gas, of another sectors, and they have to put and add from the normal work all the hydrogen projects. So all of this needs not only this movement, but also just to add more professionals that are focused on this, because we cannot expect just to put 100 projects towards the environmental authorities on all the energy regulations and just wait for it to just move. So there is also the need to push forward and make it easier. So not all the regular and common ways are going to be the same. So the path has to be a little bit adjusted for the development of this market. Technologically, I already told, the local technological maturity is also really low. So, and this is probably my lovesick point of view, because we need science to develop new technology. And there is still a lot to do around materials, around processing. So there are really a lot of challenges of research and development that needs to be addressed and needs to be pushed forward and funded. And finally, I would say that there is the geopolitical, because this is not something that is happening locally. we have, as I talked before, 40% of the projects that are looking toward exportation. And this is most of the installed power that is going to be to create export products. And we need this geopolitical collaboration and coordination. We cannot create a huge industry without having even a low certainty that is going to be bought afterwards. So these big consumers, they are looking and pushing us towards all the demands of hydrogen and its derivatives. They need to collaborate at some point. And I would say that Chile, for example, has been moving forward with a lot of memorandum of understanding just to have a view of what the off-takers would be for these exportations. And also, since it's not developed in a global scale, there is still a lack of green corridors that need to be addressed. So, but don't just keep all the challenges at the barrier. We move together, and from the very beginning, there is a goal for the development of this. We need to decrease the global emissions. We need to create some new technologies. And even though this is new and the timeline is short, we have a lot of learned lessons from other similar markets that we need to push forward. And I would say for us in ECIT, the key is about science, engineering, and collaboration. So if you need anything from us, we are happy to help. There is our email, and I am open to any questions if you have.
Dr. Josefa, thank you very much for this very insightful scientific market demand, production cost and regulations presentation about green hydrogen. It was really very insightful. Let me maybe address some of the questions from the audience to you and see your thoughts on that. So we have Felipe Torres. He's asking a question regarding the comparison with other South American countries. So how do you see Chile's potential, and what do you think is going to be the key barrier that these countries should overcome to position themselves as a worldwide exporter of green hydrogen, pretty much, talking about Chile. So I think these are two questions. So one of them, how do you see kind of this comparison between Chile and the other countries in Latin America? And then specifically regarding to Chile, how do you see that Chile is going to be able to be a key player in the global market for the green hydrogen industry?
Super. So thank you for the question. At first, I would say that even though we have similar challenges and similar barriers, we focus the market in really different way in Latin America. For example, Brazil, that has a huge CO2 potential, they have the opportunity to produce another really refined fuels like SAF, the sustainable aviation fuels. So this means that their barriers will come towards that processing. But in general, I would say that when the investment is looking forward in Chile, they stopped when they have some problems in the regulations and the local permits. So they have to be approved by the community, and we are really strict in what is actually going through. And so in that case, it's easier just to go and put it in another countries that don't have these barriers. From the other side, that's also a strength for us, because it means that if the project is really approved, once it's operating, it's going to be supported not only by the industry, but also by the public administration. So that's something that is really like interesting to take into account when you're going to invest. So it's going to take time. It's going to be difficult, but once it's approved, it's going to just run smoothly. Another thing that is probably going to push a little bit lower could be the incentives. not in terms of subsidies, because we don't have the IRA from the United States. I don't think the Latin America has the capacity of investment to just support hydrogen in that economical pathway. However, there are some fees that could be cut down just in the very beginning of the project's development that could push forward. And that's where exactly I think some of the national strategies are differed in the several Latin American countries. So some of them just move forward to just take out the price of electricity connections, another good point, another political instrument, but they move toward that. So what is the price? Another form, or just to or way just to push this could be the other part that I don't think is actually going to regulate good the market, but carbon fees, carbon credits, carbon taxes, and everything that is moving towards the local industry. However, I think from the lessons learned, if you just put a higher tax on an industry, it's just going to move towards the consumer. So that's why I don't really support that kind of measures. It's really difficult for a company just to absorb an additional tax without that impacting the final consumer.
Thank you very much. Hitendra, do you have a question? Go ahead.
It was not a question. It's, I want to get a dialogue going, Josefa. We just finished a study about all the case studies from hydrogen around the world and investments being made, similar to what you did for Chile and South America. And it's clear the inputs are expensive, meaning solar and green and wind. It's coming down, but it's still expensive. And then behind the clean water is always a big issue. Where do you get that amount of clean water? And then there's all this technology, which are all in different stages of maturity. They're not at the point of the lowest cost. They're all in early stages of whether you're going to be using Nafion or whether you're going to use different types of technologies to do what you have to do. Storage is still being developed. And then the off-takers, which off-takers are going to really do this? So low cost on the inputs, absolutely needed. Good old business, you need low cost. And you need, at the same time, a low cost on the outputs for somebody to buy it. Cost is $4 on average per kilogram, the famous $4 number. And we can't get the number down very easily unless we, as you said, we coordinate everybody. The coordination game is a problem over there. So people are announcing, people are exciting, billions of dollars, billions and billions of dollars are being announced around the world. And everybody's going to become energy independent. Everybody's going to be no longer needing oil and gas and everything else. And the question is, we are on a hype curve on one side of how much of this is hype and how quickly will it happen. In your forecast, when will you see the first gigawatt plant in production and where? When and where?
Okay, so I think the biggest hydrogen plant is already being built and operating in China. So Chinese people
on green
have
hydrogen. On green hydrogen.
It's green. That's the point. And they have the first technical issues. So you addressed so many interesting points that I don't know how to pick them up, but I'm just going to put some of them on the table. So I would say, and just as a general rule, the countries with more support for deceleration are going to be the first ones. And in China, they have the support from the public sector. So it's natural that they are building the biggest companies. If you have ever make a quotation for technology from China, you would see that they have the companies just one side of the other. And if they don't have something, they just cross the street and ask for them to help. And they give you a quotation of everything. So that collaboration, that internal between the private sector with the support of the public sector is going to probably make them push forward. And that's kind of the strategy that we have to have here, like in Latin America. I would say,
You did ask to answer the question though, who will pay for it? And right now the Chinese people will pay for it because the extra $3 is coming out of somebody's taxes. It's coming out of somebody's money, and whether somebody's subsidizing it. So it is a project, and it's really just a pilot project to show we can develop 1 gigawatts, but not affordably or competitively, only at the expense of subsidies or taxes. And therefore, when those things go down and it goes into a free market, how do we get it down to the free market price of what the market energy prices are? Because you cannot change the steel industry, you cannot change the cement industry, you cannot change the transportation industries to use something 4 times more expensive. So how do we, and I'm not saying you should have the answer, Josefa, I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying we have a big challenge here, that on one side we have a pilot plant, which is really being subsidized tremendously. Pilot plant doesn't mean it's a productive plant.
Yeah, so let's just move a little bit the questions and the focus. If you speak about gigawatts, you need a gigawatt plant of electrolysis. And then you need electrolyzers that are able to produce in giga. That means we need the factories that produce these huge electrolyzers. And today we have that in modules. So we have the biggest one, they still have modules of electrolysis that are putting together. And we are already like, I think, well, I wouldn't put a number for that because I am really bad with numbers. However, you would say that they don't have a 1 gigawatt electrolyzer to sell. If you don't have a 1 gigawatt electrolyzer to sell, you don't have a plant for that. So it's not only us as Latin America, the capacity to build that, but also we need the technology to do that. So there is one technological barrier, that's the production of that. The forecasting that is made by several important studies in the world, for example, from IRENA of the IEA, they say that in 2017 and no 2027, right? 27, the electrolysis price will go down. They were considering acceleration in the market developed and this technological processing of the electrolyzers that went together with the optimization of the processes. However, if we see what has been happening these last years, we could say that the electrolyzers actually went a little bit higher in price and then a little bit lower, but it's not going down as it was predicted. So now we cannot have a forecast, but we I
agree. Josefa, we're working in an ambiguous, uncertain world. We understand, and so it's not easy, and it's all we are being asked. You are being asked, when will it happen? Where will it happen? Those kind of questions affordably. You know, I was thinking on your starting presentation when you said you were first a scientist and then an engineer, and how you get scaled up and all that. The story that came to my mind was Elon Musk when he did that with the electric car. All the car companies couldn't do it. They couldn't get an electric car out because they were comparing their car productivity. The electric car had to match the gas car in performance. And so they couldn't get a car to last 300 miles of operations, the temperature range and everything else. So they kept on saying, we can't do it, we can't do it. And Elon Musk says, no, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to target a different market, a smaller market, just city driving, and people who have a lot of money, rich people who can buy an expensive car. And by finding a different off-taker, I use the word off-taker now, a different off-taker, he was able to change the value chain and disrupt the whole industry. Do you see that as a possibility, that there are certain off-takers who might value green hydrogen and green energy much more, and it's a small percentage of their overall cost, but they can claim to be green cars or green steel or green something, and therefore maybe we are focusing on the wrong industries to be the off-takers, and maybe we should be focusing on some other industries that could change the game, exactly like Elon Musk did in the automotive industry. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so if you go towards applications, we have exactly that. We have to find this added value and find a capital value to these added values. So autonomy could be one. Just to stop depending of international fuels variability, that could help strongly to the value of the hydrogen. However, I would say that part is probably going to be moderated by public instruments, politic instruments. So, for example, in Germany, there is this law for mining for the responsibility of the value chain that is going towards the very first part of the mineral extraction. And if they are asking that part to be green, that means the process is going to be there, have to be green. And then it's not like it's going to be premium or easy. It's just there's going to be a start to appearing these barriers for international trade of different materials. In cars, you would say that there are, there are three huge movements or initiatives towards sustainable mobility. There's the first that could be this e-fuels, synthetic fuels, just the same car, but with an alternative fuel. The hydrogen cars, and also the electromobility. And all of that are really related to different markets. If you say, okay, electromobility could be better or could be easier to just put into the market, I would say like, yes, it could be. However, it has been a lot of time since electric cars have been on the road and we don't have that implemented here. So there's a lot of resistance from the local market. And also we don't have the materials in the world to cover everything with electric cars by batteries. So there is a space for all of these technologies, even though it cannot be the price, like the best price. There is something also that I would like just to point out, because we're also trying to be competitive towards fossil fuels, but fossil fuels are heavily subsidized. So there is a lot of money put into that industry. There is a lot of incentives and fees that are not covered. So if we just, and even every year, the investment in fossil fuels plants and the creation of new fossil fuels is still there. So we are trying to be competitive with an industry that is already has a lot of support. So if we put the same support in hydrogen, we will be already on there, but we are not doing that. And this is 120 years of difference.
Yeah, no, I think Josefa, this is clear. The China strategy, as you said, they don't have elections necessarily of the same type. They can have a 100-year plan and they can move in one direction. While in the US, we have the Inflation Reduction Act that just happened. And now Biden may not continue, and therefore will change the government into a Republican government, and the IRA will slow down again and will go down to drill, baby, drill. And so we'll be drilling oil again. And our culture, because of the fact that we got billionaires who are profiting from the oil industry, who will lobby with the government to shift it back to the other direction. So we got these political issues also. So now with the politics of the United States, and even with Europe also changing back and forth in their government systems, which are democracies, whilst it's a country like China, which is very unilateral and moving in one direction, do you see the hydrogen capital actually being in Europe, South America, North America, or actually, look, from my feeling for what you said, might be actually China? And is China going to be the provider of all the electrolyzers, provider of all the supply, content, and everything else? And they'll be building factories around the world, and then doing the same thing as building hydroelectric plants around the world. They'll be building all the hydrogen plants around the world. What's your hypothesis on that, directions politically, and where we're going on that front?
Okay, so I will just start saying that you're asking this to a scientist. I have a scientist answer. So if you want to create technologies, you have to develop, refine processes, do a methodology, and find the right resources. And in this case, materials, I would say it again, materials are really key, because alkalines, electrolyzers have a lot of operational problems. I don't know if you have seen some of the lessons learned from these huge plants that are already in China. They have problems with what is the effective time of operation of these alkaline electrolyzers. So instead of the 50% that's thought it would work, it's working around 20, and they cannot meet the goals. So if China goes through just alkaline, then it's going to be a little bit lower, especially in the gigawatts scale. We need a little bit more resilient materials for that. Which companies are actually going to be able to buy? I think the first investment, the first biggest investment are going to be key in the development of the market and the local region. So that's why I will just say, okay, I am Chilean, so I would say Chile has a huge potential for that because they are making huge investment in technology. And once you get the provider, then you can just move forward towards it. So we can create this security in the markets, and we can create.
Josefa, I fully agree that technology is critical here. So let's look at the value chain of the technology itself, whether it's the production of electrons or whether it is the conversion of electrons into hydrogen, breaking the hydrogen. Which part of, if you break the technology, we need to know how to make hydrogen. And in there, is it the separators? Is it the surface chemistry? Is it the connectors? Is it the current collection? Is it the containing of the gases? Is it which part are the ones that will create a competitive advantage, a scientific breakthrough that will give a company or a scientist a Nobel Prize? Which is the one inside there which is worthy of a Nobel Prize?
For a Nobel Prize. Okay, yeah. If I knew the receipt, I would have the Nobel Prize myself. But question, I think one of the biggest problems or challenges about the technology is the variability of the resource, of the electrical resource. Because, for example, Haber-Bosch, to produce ammonia, it's already consolidated process. It's an electrochemical reactor that is already in the market for many years. However, it worked with a continuous supply. This variability of the supply for this reject process, the same with Fischer-Tropsch, the same with the electrolyzer itself, this is the key problem. So if we could make something, because it doesn't make any sense, it doesn't make real sense just to put a battery before the electrolyzer just to make a continuous supply. It doesn't make sense to put hydrogen just to make more hydrogen. So there is a line there, a gap for the stability of the energy source that has to be addressed in some way.
Josefa, thank you very much. I'll let Carolina wrap up the meeting, but it was a little bit of fun going back and forth on this conversation. And without a doubt, there are so many technological breakthroughs waiting to happen, needing to happen to bring green hydrogen to the world. And I wish you best of luck in your scientific endeavors and look forward to see you in Sweden, perhaps, receiving the Nobel Prize.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hitendra and Dr. Josefa. It was a great conversation and, of course, a great information that you just shared, Josefa. I think I'm always amazed on these numbers of investments, numbers of projects on a very uncertain kind of industry that is just developing. So it's always very interesting. So before we wrap up, I don't want to miss the opportunity to, of course, thank you, Dr. Josefa, again for this insightful presentation, but also to invite everyone, now that we are talking about also these subjects, I want guys to invite you to participate on Innova Latam. I don't know if you have heard of Innova Latam. This is one of the largest corporate innovation events that we have in Latin America. Actually, one of the themes that we have is going to be energy transition. So we are going to be discussing about green hydrogen, some of the initiatives that oil and gas companies are actually putting in place to actually reach this energy transformation that the different industries are looking for. So very welcome to join us in Cartagena. This is going to be in Cartagena, Colombia on October 24th in Hotel Estelar. So with that, I just want to thank everyone, and then thank you again, Dr. Josefa, and then we will be sharing those insights after this session. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice day.